Starting us off at number 10 is true north. Very few places on Earth will ever actually point to true north. What is true north? True north is the direction that points exactly towards the geographic North Pole. Being that there are next to no markers and obviously no landmarks in the middle of the ocean, when GPS and other high-tech systems go awry, ships and other craft are forced to use their compasses as a way to stay on track. Compasses operate usually by pointing towards magnetic north, as the compass aligns with Earth's magnetic field. Magnetic north can shift depending on the change in the Earth's magnetic core, which operators and sailors are prepared for, thus creating a huge issue when operators and sailors traveling through the mysterious triangle discover that their compass is no longer working properly, because it's pointing to true north instead of magnetic north. I'll be honest, it's been a while since I've ever had to use a compass, and I think no matter what my compass reads, I would still be lost at sea. So Bermuda doesn't sound like the greatest vacay spot, but let's continue to see what's in store before we make up our mind. At number 9, we have the deepest spot on Earth. So we always talk about how much we want to keep exploring space and we want to get to know our own universe, but you know what's really funny to me? We still have barely scraped the surface, or under the surface, for exploring our own ocean. One of those places being the Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle is home to one of the deepest spots on Earth. Underneath the surface, the topography of the seafloor goes from a gentle sloping continental shelf to a drop of a few hundred feet to another drop of a few who knows how many thousand feet. Many disappearances that have been reported in the Bermuda Triangle could have their answers laying somewhere at the bottom of these deep trenches. But until we actually start exploring our oceans just as much as we explore space, just like whatever lays at the bottom, we will be left in the dark. At our number 8 spot, we have methane gas. This gas is colorless, odorless, highly flammable, and one of the main components in natural gas, which we all use to generate electricity and heat our homes all around the world. But guess what? It's also in the Bermuda Triangle. Due to decomposing sea organisms, scientists have discovered large concentrations of methane gas trapped in the ocean floor. Methane accumulates as concentrated methane ice, and if and when a pocket ruptures, the gas rockets upwards towards the surface without any warning or notice to those sailing above. If a ship were to be in the area of the blowout, it could possibly sink because the water would become much less dense and sediment could quickly cover it as the wreck lands on the sea floor. As of right now, there is no proof that this is the reason for any of the missing ships that have been reported in the Bermuda Triangle, but then again, how would we ever know? At our number 7 spot, we have Rogue Waves. Now does that not sound like a great band name or what? Due to the location of the Bermuda Triangle in the Atlantic Ocean, storms can come from all directions. They can come from Mexico, from the equator, or the east side of the Atlantic. These storms of course make major waves reaching up to 30 feet or 10 meters tall, but what happens when they all come together at the exact same moment? These rogue waves can reach up to sizes of 100 feet or 30 meters tall. Engineers at the University of Southampton built models of different sized ships and simulated their own rogue waves in a wave tank for the small scale ships. What happened? These engineers discovered that these ships could indeed sink. The bigger the ship, the easier it was to sink, because big ships are designed to be supported in the front by the top of a wave, while the back is supported by another. But if hit by a rogue wave, those big ships, guess what? They snap in two. The small ones can sometimes survive if they hit the wave bow on, but most times will just get swallowed up completely. Rogue waves, hopefully not coming to an ocean near you. At our number 6 spot, we have electronic fog. So far, out of the many distress calls claiming to come from an electronic fog, these stories and events have been labeled as supernatural and not taken seriously. But there are reports from actual pilots who have flown through these strange phenomena, and it's wild. Veteran pilot Bruce Gurnon reports that when he was flying with his father in his classic Bonanza plane back in 1970, about 3 miles off Andros Island, an elliptical-shaped cloud began forming in front of them. Before the father and son could escape the path of this mysterious cloud, they were engulfed and had a tunnel form all the way around them. And while in the cloud flying at 10,000 feet, they reported seeing lines in the tunnel spiraling counterclockwise while propelling them forward. They then started feeling the effects of zero gravity, and all of their navigational systems started to fail. Fortunately, this electronic spiraling fog tunnel dissipated and they found themselves right over Miami Beach and were once again able to pick up radar. The next strange thing? They traveled 100 miles in 30 minutes less time than usual. Similar stories to Gurnon's have been reported as well, but with no real answers to how or why. Some suspect it could be something related to the Hutchison effect, but as of right now, the electronic fog is still a mystery. Coming in at our number 5 midway spot is the once infamous mythical creature proven to be real, the giant squid. Aside from the many strange events and things found in the Bermuda Triangle, some have reported seeing a giant octopus, or octopi if there are more than one. I wonder. Now, as of right now, there is no such thing as these creatures, but giant squid are indeed a real animal, and 2 Japanese scientists believe they caught one on camera. In 2005, 2 Japanese scientists spotted a giant squid aggressively taking baited lines. Normally, these creatures are not known to be in this area of ocean, but the footage says differently. These giant squid can reach up to 150 feet. Seeing the aggressive nature of this creature as well as the size, it is no wonder some believe that they could be responsible for some of the disappearing ships. Speaking of, coming in our top 4 spot, we have ships that have gone missing. As I said earlier, there are more than 50 ships that are reported to have gone missing in the Bermuda Triangle over the years. One of the most notorious ones being the USS Cyclops. One of the Navy's largest fuel ships went missing back in March 1918. This ship was carrying 10,800 tons of manganese ore with 309 crew members on board. Only one message was received from the ship during its voyage from Brazil to Baltimore, and it reported no trouble whatsoever while it was out on the sea. But then, it sailed through the Bermuda Triangle. The ship never made it to its destination and was never found. Not only was the ship never found, but also no debris or crew members either. There was no distress call received anywhere. One of the largest ships in the Navy and everything on board and everyone on board gone missing in a flash with no explanation? That's scary. Starting us off at our number 3 spot is planes gone missing. Over 20 aircraft just like ships have gone missing over the years, and some of these reports are quite recent too. One of the latest being just last year in May when a small twin-engine plane mysteriously went missing. Same thing as the USS Cyclops, those aboard started their flight with no complications whatsoever, and there were no distress calls reported or anything out of the ordinary. Once again, no wreckage, crew, or any signs of any explanation can be found. But maybe our next one on the list will help. At our number 2 spot, we have UFO sightings. If you have been keeping up to date with any of the alien news lately, you will know that there have been more than a couple of sightings all over North America in the last few years. One of them taking place over the Bermuda Triangle, April 28, 2020, reported by not just anyone, but the United States Air Force. Many of the United States Air Force members have come out quite recently with more and more sightings, with some of them dating all the way back to the 1970s, right over top of the Bermuda Triangle. I hear more and more alien information every day, and I am loving it. If I ever have a major reason to go to Bermuda, it's to see some aliens. Come on, who's coming with me? Finally, coming in at our number 1 spot is something we're going to have to grab our proton packs for, because our final and weirdest thing found in Bermuda is ghost ships. Back in 1881, the infamous Ellen Austin ship experienced a ghost ship in an area of the Bermuda Triangle before things went awfully awry. The crew of the Ellen Austin discovered the ship fully stocked but with no crew on board or anywhere to be seen. Seeing an opportunity for a free ship with supplies, part of the Ellen Austin crew took over the ship and prepared to sail back with the ships side by side. Just then, an unexpected storm came out of nowhere and totally engulfed the 2 ships. After the storm was over the next day, both ships came out of the Terror, but no crew was anywhere to be seen on the picked up ghost ship. Just then, crew members and captain of the Ellen Austin came aboard once again and then got swallowed up by a mysterious fog. And once the fog cleared, the ghost ship completely vanished along with everything and everyone. I hate to say it, but I guess that's karma, and she's always gonna come for you. Starting us off at our number 10 spot is one that isn't as weird, but one that is obvious. Film crews. Due to the wild and crazy stories centered around the Bermuda Triangle, many scientists, researchers, ghost hunters, alien hunters, and divers have taken plenty of camera crews out to sea many times. Now, due to all of these crazy, amazing stories, I tried to do some research and see if there were any other missing film crews or anything along those lines in the Bermuda Triangle. But sadly, probably fortunately, I had no luck whatsoever, which is very fishy to me. All of these disappearances and strange stories, all of them seem to have no camera or film crew. Sounds like the Bermuda Triangle powers that be are pretty smart and refuse for any of the juicy stuff to be recorded. This is also one of the most popular shipping routes in the world, so it would be great for all of those who frequently sail the triangle to document it. I wonder if anything would actually show up on tape. At our number 9 spot, we have sea monsters. In part 1, remember how I talked about the giant squid that have been caught on camera in the triangle? Well, there have been more reports of sea monsters there over the years, but let me clear up something first. The Webster's Dictionary defines monster as an animal of strange or terrifying shape and one unusually large for its kind. Based off that definition, there are definitely sea monsters swimming below the surface in the Bermuda Triangle. Sadly, none are proven to be ancient dinosaurs or anything like the Loch Ness Monster, but rather are huge marine animals, such as the endangered whale shark, which has been known to swim in and around the waters of the Bermuda Triangle. And there is no doubt that if someone first saw this shark, they would scream sea monster. These things are huge and usually reach lengths of 15 to 20 feet. So these may not be the kind of sea monsters you were originally looking for, but I think all those super scary monsters that we're actually looking for live deeper below the surface. And like I said, until we start exploring our own planet, especially our oceans a little bit more, I'm afraid we'll just have to live with the unknown. At number 8, we have the Portuguese Man of War. Sounds like a wicked awesome ship, am I right? Well, it may sound like that, but it's actually closer to one big giant jellyfish, even though it's not just one animal. The Portuguese Man of War is a siphonophore, which means it is an animal made up of a colony of organisms that work together. These organisms are made up of 4 separate polyps, and the top polyp is the weird looking part for where it got its name because it sits above the water and resembles what it looks to be like a man of war ship. They are also known as blue bottles for their bluish purple colors. The tentacles on these creatures can extend up to 165 feet underwater and are covered in venom-filled nematocysts. These tentacles can paralyze and kill other fish and smaller creatures, but to humans, it's just a really painful sting. They have been known to wash up dead on the beach, but careful, these things can still sting you after they are dead. And trust me when I say, it's gonna hurt. Coming in at number 7, and back to the mysterious kind of things we all love out of the Bermuda Triangle, we have Joshua Slocum. No, I'm not calling this guy weird, I'm saying his disappearance is weird. In 1895, Joshua Slocum became the first man on Earth to complete a solo sail around the world. However, on a voyage from Martha's Vineyard to South America, he mysteriously never returned. Slocum was known as quite the experienced sailor, and no one knows what happened to him nor his 40-foot long boat. Many theorize that he caught some trouble while sailing in the Triangle. Now, there is no proof of any of this, and sadly he lived at a time where technology wasn't as high-tech either. So this one is a true mystery. This is why, kids, if you ever want to sail around the world or sail period, bring a buddy. If you sail in the Bermuda Triangle, bring a film crew. At number 6, we have bombers. In 1945, 5 TPM Avenger torpedo bombers took off from the naval base in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and mysteriously vanished in the Atlantic Ocean. Flight 19 was in the middle of completing a 3-hour exercise which involved heading east to conduct bombing runs. However, along the way, the flight's leader, Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor, became incredibly paranoid when his compass failed and he believed they were flying in the wrong direction. He then demanded that the fleet begin flying northeast, thinking that that would steer them back to Florida. But they were flying deeper out over into the Atlantic Ocean. Reportedly, as they flew closer to the Bermuda Triangle, their signals became weaker and eventually all contact was lost from the 5 bomber planes. None of the crew or craft were ever seen again. Maybe I should rename these videos to the weirdest things never found in the Bermuda Triangle, because that kind of seems to be more on par. Coming in at number 5 at our halfway point is witchcraft. Yeah, did you know that there are such things as sea witches? Okay, I'm not actually talking about witches, I'm talking about the yacht that went missing, but for all I know, maybe there actually is such thing as sea witches. Who knows? If they're going to be anywhere, it's probably going to be the Bermuda Triangle, right? December 22nd, 1967, a cabin cruiser named Witchcraft, captained by Dan Burak and his friend Father Patrick Horgan, left the shores of Miami to get a better glimpse of the Christmas lights along the shore from out in the ocean. After reaching just 1 mile from the shore, the Coast Guard received a distress call from Burak, claiming that he had hit something and that they would need to be towed back to shore. In just 19 short minutes, the Coast Guard arrived on scene, but there was nothing to be found. What's even more peculiar is that this yacht was virtually unsinkable and had plenty of emergency equipment on board. Equipment such as life preservers, lifeboats, flares, distress signals. These cats had all of the good stuff. To the best of the Coast Guard's knowledge, none of these were used and nothing could be found. Searches for Burak and Father Horgan and the boat spread over a 100-mile radius and still nothing was found. Kinda makes you wonder how the yacht got the name Witchcraft, doesn't it? At number 4, we have unexpected storms. Reports throughout all of time have come in about the unexpected storms of the Bermuda Triangle. Many of these stories include things such as the electronic fog that I talked about in the first video. As I have said before, storms can come from all directions in this area. They can come from the direction of Mexico, the equator, and from the east side of the Atlantic. And sometimes these storms can even come together all at the same time to make one large megastorm. So that's all I can kind of theorize about there, but as far as these storms being unexpected unexpected? To the best of my knowledge, there is no real explanation. If there's one thing you don't want to mess with, it's Mother Nature, because let me tell you, she can pack a wallop. So, whether you believe in the paranormal or mysterious events or not surrounding the triangle, keep your eye on the weather forecast just in case. Starting us off in our top 3 spot at number 3 is another famous ship associated with the Bermuda Triangle, the Mary Celeste. The Mary Celeste was discovered December 4th in 1872 in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean with 9 barrels of raw alcohol emptied, a sword on the deck, and the lifeboat missing and absolutely no one on board. Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife, and 2-year-old daughter, along with the other 4 members on board, set sail a few days before from New York to go to Genoa, Italy. However, not only were none of them found, none of them turned up in Italy either. I know many of you are probably thinking of a pirate attack, but get this. Studies ruled out the possibility of a pirate attack because everything on board appeared to be intact and in good shape, even though the 9 barrels were emptied. There are tons of theories on what happened to the crew, everything from underwater earthquakes, which doesn't make sense to me because I don't understand why the boat would still be found, alien abduction, or even an attack by a giant squid. Either way, this is a mystery that I don't think we will ever get solved, and we will just have to live with that. At our number 2 spot, we have fire falling from the sky. Way back in time, the infamous Christopher Columbus sailed through the Bermuda Triangle and came out with quite the tale. He reported seeing a giant ball of fire falling from the sky and then landing in the ocean. A few weeks later, in the distance, he could see a strange light in and around the landing area of the fireball. He also wrote about the erratic compass movements he experienced at the time. Probably not aware yet that his compass was pointing to true north and not magnetic north. Once again, I think I expect aliens. Too many UFOs have been spotted around that area. Let's face it, folks, I think it's aliens. They have been here for a long time, and that sounds a lot like a UFO sighting. Either that or Columbus was absolutely tanked, because I know everyone at that time was very fond of their alcoholic drinks. But aliens is the much more fun and, oddly enough, mature theory, so I'm gonna stick to that one. And finally, coming in at our number 1 is the lost city of Atlantis. This one is very loose, but many people theorize that the Bermuda Triangle is home to the lost city of Atlantis. According to the legend and speculation of this mythical city, Atlantis relied on the power of these special energy crystals. The theory is that these crystals are still underwater beneath the triangle and are so strong that they are messing up navigation for all of those who dare fly or sail above. Now, there is absolutely no proof to any of this, but this is a wicked cool theory, and if Atlantis or Atlantean people actually do exist, where else better than one of the deepest spots on Earth, and also most mysterious spots on Earth?
Alright, coming in at number 10, we have the Mystery Light. In 1492, Christopher Columbus was on board the Santa Maria with his crew on his first voyage to the New World. He sailed through the area we now know as the Bermuda Triangle and reported seeing fire on the horizon, despite there being no discernible land. He wrote in his diary describing the flame as a small wax candle that rose and lifted up. On investigation, they couldn't get to the bottom of what it was. In modern times, people attribute the light to Columbus witnessing a meteor crash, others not so convinced. Coming in at number 9, Bruce Gernon and the Time Warp. A lot of the Bermuda Triangle encounters happened a long time ago, or there simply aren't any key eyewitnesses to discuss their experiences. Bruce Gernon is very much alive and kicking, and he had a very strange experience flying over the Bermuda Triangle on his way to Palm Beach in the 1970s. At the time, he was an experienced personal pilot and a grown-up flying with his dad. Shortly after taking off from Andros in the Bahamas, Gernon came across a storm, so he tried to fly around it. He found a strange tunnel in the clouds and decided he's gonna fly through it. Here's what he had to say about it.
The airplane penetrated into the tunnel. These strange lines formed.
Right. Okay, so that's what he had to say. In the tunnel, he said he had a feeling as if he was slipping through time and space. He said that when he got out of the cloud tunnel after 20 seconds, the Miami air controllers had been worried as his plane had totally disappeared off their radars. He described an electromagnetic yellow-greyish fog surrounding the plane and messing with his instruments. When he emerged from the fog, he thought that he was going to be over Bimini, but air control told him that actually, he was flying directly over Miami Beach. What should have taken him around 80 minutes of flight time had only taken 34 minutes. He was baffled. He seems to have travelled 100 miles in just 3 minutes. So this is roughly 1,918 miles per hour, when his plane was only capable of travelling at 200 miles per hour. Weird. Famous pilot Charles Lindbergh also reported something very similar in the area. Weird. Coming in at number 8, we have the Ellen Austin encounter. In 1880, the Ellen Austin came across an unidentified schooner ship drifting in the Bermuda Triangle's Sargasso Sea. Now, it was sailing a very weird erratic path, and Captain Baker of the Ellen Austin decided to trail the ship for 2 days just to check it wasn't a trap. After 48 hours, the Ellen Austin came close to the boat and received no return signal. Captain Baker decided to send 4 of his men on board to investigate the ship. Weapons drawn, they got no response. On investigation, they saw no signs of life, but also no signs of struggle. The only thing that seemed awry was that the entire crew were missing, and curiously, as was the ship's logbook. Finding a perfect stash of mahogany on board, the captain formed a prize crew of his most trusted men and ordered that they sailed the ship to New York. Days later, the Ellen Austin came across the very same vessel again. Now, they sent out signals, and once again it was met with no response. Again, the ship seemed to be drifting aimlessly. Captain Baker sent more men over, who found their prize crew totally absent, again without signs of a fray, and again the logbook was missing. Captain Baker's crew were freaked out, but he demanded that a small crew of new men once again try and steer the boat and its bounty to New York. It took hours of convincing, as many thought that the ship was cursed. However, he did manage to assemble a crew. Now, that was the last anyone ever saw of the schooner or the crew ever again. They simply disappeared. Coming into number 7, we have the missing USS Cyclops. After departing Barbados on the 4th of March 1918, the USS Cyclops went missing without a trace, with a crew of 309 people. The ship was carrying a whole load of manganese ore and was never seen again, leaving absolutely no trace. Now, by this point, it's a very familiar story. The incident was the single greatest loss of life in the history of the US Navy, whilst not actively engaged in combat. Was the ship too heavy, or did the Bermuda Triangle pull it down to its murky depths? Coming into number 6, we have Carol A. Deering. Good old Carol was the name of a 5-masted schooner. She'd been afloat for 3 years when she was found run aground and abandoned on the 31st of January 1921, which is exactly 98 years ago on the day that I scripted this video, which is really spooky. The wreck was found in Cape Hatteras in North Carolina, but she was supposed to be sailing from Puerto Rico to Rio, right in the heart of the Bermuda Triangle. She was gonna cut straight through it. Now, no trace of the crew were ever found. Some people speculated mutiny, others say the ship may have been attacked by pirates, citing the Prohibition era of the incident. Sadly, we will never know. Coming into number 5, we have the 2017 Turkish airline incident. So this is actually very recent. In February 2017, Turkish Airlines flight TK183 encountered some strange problems as it flew over the Bermuda Triangle. It seems that the Airbus A330-200 was forced to change its direction from Havana, Cuba to Washington Duluth Airport. The pilot and crew reported mechanical and electrical problems. Now, electrical problems, after what we've already heard, to me, that's just pretty interesting. Coming into number 4, this is a little bit more tin hat, we have the Lost City of Atlantis. The legend of the Lost City of Atlantis claims that the city radiated a mysterious energy that caused navigational instruments to break down, which kind of sounds like what we know from the area. Is the Lost City of Atlantis under the Bermuda Triangle? The legend of Atlantis also talks about interesting rock formations on the ocean bed. Now, these are rather like some of those located on the ocean bed in the Bahamas. These are called Bimini Road. Some mystics believe that Atlantis lies at the very, very bottom of the murky depths, and the energy of the lost souls, the ghosts of the drowned citizens, are what are causing the disappearances and luring people to their watery deaths, leaving absolutely no trace to the outside world. Honestly, I'm not sold on this one. Coming into number 3, we have the alien wreckage. Discovery Channel host Daryl Miklos was filming a show whilst diving in the Caribbean using maps made by former NASA astronaut Gordon Cooper. Now, he was in search of old shipwrecks and magnetic anomalies. He was investigating what he thought might be an ancient shipwreck, but it turns out it was something else entirely. Miklos described it as a formation unlike anything he had ever seen, being far too big for a shipwreck, he also said. Now, he said something which I thought was really interesting. He said it was something that was completely different from anything that I've ever seen made by nature. This led him to speculate that actually it might be something entirely unearthly. Miklos also found another strange object and formation all around the big puzzling object, all of which are covered in thick coral, thought to date back hundreds upon hundreds of years. When Miklos studied Cooper's work, he found that the astronaut believed in aliens. Now this led to the Discovery Channel host speculating that the mysterious wreckage could be a crashed alien spaceship. Because, you know, what else? Coming into number 2, we have the UFOs over the triangle. Can we explain the Bermuda Triangle with aliens? Maybe. It seems that there was a terrifying alien encounter on board the USS John F. Kennedy in the 1970s, but crew on board the ship were told by the captain to keep stum. It seems that the ship was set to return to Virginia after 2 weeks in the Caribbean, and was in the middle of the ocean when the crew on deck looked up to see a large glowing sphere around 200 to 300 feet in diameter. One eyewitness said it was yellow and orange in colour, and all of the radar screens on board the boat lit up. Naval officers tried to deploy 2 F-4 Phantoms to intercept the UFO, but they simply wouldn't start. Eventually the UFO moved on days later, and as the ship was making its approach back to the USA, the captain warned the crew against speaking of the incident. This isn't the only time it's happened either. It seems Google Maps shows a UFO just outside of the triangle. Finally, coming into number 1, we have the disappearance of Flight 19. Now this is the most famed legend surrounding the Bermuda Triangle and one of the hardest to explain. It all went down on December 5th, 1945, when 5 TBM Avenger bombers, grouped as Flight 19, were flying over the Bermuda Triangle. The flight never returned to Fort Lauderdale as planned, and the worst was feared, with the general theory being that something had gone wrong and the planes had run out of fuel. As there were 14 men lost, the Navy sent out a rescue mission to search for survivors, or at least to confirm the wreck. 13 crew were set off on the Martin PBM Mariner flying boat, but that flight never made it back either. Neither wrecks have ever been found, nor have any traces of the missing people. Now the story made international news and helped perpetuate the legend of the Bermuda Triangle.
Number 10. It is said that the DC-3 is one of the most reliable aircrafts to have ever been designed and built. You will see a lot of these airplanes flying in Florida, the Caribbean, and the Bahamas because its main job is for island hopping. But on December 28, 1948, a DC-3 aircraft took off from San Juan Airport and was headed to Miami. It was only 15 miles from the south of Florida, but the plane was never seen or heard from again. It disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle with 28 passengers and 3 crew members on board. This was the first time that a DC-3 aircraft disappeared, but many others have disappeared since, and they all went missing just 50 miles from the Florida Keys. And you know what? I wouldn't call that a coincidence. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think I'll be booking a flight that even has the smallest chance of flying over the Bermuda Triangle. Every time I book a flight, I'm gonna pick up the phone and be like, yo, do you fly over the Bermuda? And if they say yes, I'm gonna be like, bam, hang it up, flight is cancelled. I mean, it's 2019, people. Can't we come up with an alternate flight path? Clearly something is going on. Obviously, the Bermuda Triangle is one of life's greatest mysteries, and I don't think we should be going anywhere near it. You know what? Unless your life goal is to disappear without a trace, then go for it. Or if it's on your bucket list to be the one that disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle, then go for it. Flight 441 comes flying in on this list at number 9. This aircraft took off with 42 passengers on board as they made their way from the Naz Pax River Naval Station in Legis, and is located in the Azores Islands. I have no idea where that is. I had to search on a map, never heard of it. Well, all contact with the plane was lost when they were about 400 miles from the coast. Flight 441 never arrived at its destination, and it disappeared without a trace. Because of this, the disappearance of Flight 441 was one of the most investigated incidents of all time. They looked into the weather conditions that day and the pilot's abilities. The weather was pretty typical that day. There wasn't any icing, but there was scattered thunderstorms and minor turbulence. The plane was equipped with more than enough flotation devices that should have survived, but again, nothing was ever found. Next up, number 8, we have a very unusual disappearance. Let's travel back to November 3rd, 1978, when a pilot left St. Croix and was headed towards St. Thomas to pick up passengers. This experienced pilot went on this flight by himself, and he has done it, a bunch of times. No big deal. Apparently the visibility was good and temperatures were nice and warm. Some would say that he had the perfect flying conditions, but during the flight the control tower advised him that he was headed for a small shower, so he should alter his route a bit. He made the adjustments needed, and as he was getting close to the St. Thomas airport, the plane was cleared for landing and the control tower saw the red and green lights blinking from the plane, but soon after another plane took off and the controller couldn't see the lights from the original plane. It had disappeared from the radar and an emergency search effort was put into place, but nothing was ever found. And keep in mind that this plane was literally only 1 mile from landing. I mean, this is absolutely horrifying. And where did it go? The disappearance of a small plane takes us to number 7.
According to flight records, their plane left Puerto Rico at 11:08 a.m. Monday. Destination, Titusville, Florida. But 2 hours, 22 minutes into the flight, at an altitude of 24,000 feet, the plane disappeared from radar. The search falls in the air.
This is probably one of the most recent cases of a plane disappearance from the Bermuda Triangle. I mean, we're talking about 2017. So in May of that year, this flight was carrying 2 adults and 2 children, and it was scheduled to fly from Puerto Rico to Central Florida, but it never arrived. Miami Air Traffic Control lost radar and radio contact with the airplane just 3 hours into the flight. Rescue crews searched more than 8,200 square miles in over 30 hours, but the plane just seemed to vanish out of thin air. All 4 of them most likely lost their lives, but because of this mysterious disappearance, so many people are coming up with their own theories about what really happened. And you know what? Let me know what your guys' theories are. What is going on in the Bermuda Triangle? Let me know in the comment section below. Some of the theories suggest that, aliens are controlling the Bermuda Triangle and they cause ships and planes to crash. While others believe that there's a utopian society located in the Bermuda Triangle and people who find it never want to leave. Star Tiger comes flying in onto this list at number 6. Back on January 30th, 1948, a plane was scheduled to fly from England to Bermuda, but it suddenly vanished without a trace. They were supposed to arrive by 5 a.m. the following day, but the pilot and 31 other people on the plane were never heard from again. In the official report, investigators claimed that the heater on the plane was unreliable and it might have failed en route. So in order to keep the temperatures inside of the cabin warm, the pilot might have chosen to fly at a lower altitude, which would have burned his fuel a lot faster, and if he was flying low, that wouldn't have given him a lot of time to react if he had run into some trouble. It's been 71 years since the plane disappeared and it still remains a mystery today. Star Ariel comes in onto this list at number 5. This aircraft is very similar to the Star Tiger. It left from Bermuda on January 17, 1949, with 7 crew members and 13 passengers. It was en route to Jamaica, but no one ever predicted that they would become another casualty of the Bermuda Triangle. Apparently the pilot reported that their flight was going smoothly, but shortly afterwards the captain said that he was changing his frequency and he was never heard from again. A search and rescue team was sent out to look for them, but nothing was ever found. After this aircraft disappeared, British South American Airlines stopped the production of the Tudor 4 planes because they clearly have a bad track record of mysteriously disappearing over the Bermuda Triangle. Here's a crazy idea. Instead of stopping the manufacturing of these planes, how about you don't fly into a place that is eating them? I think that would be a safer bet. Just fly around the damn thing. Number 4, we have the mysterious disappearance of the Trislander. A small 3-engine aircraft was set to depart from San Diego to New York on December 15, 2008, and it was carrying 12 passengers on board. But the unthinkable happened. Just 35 minutes after the plane took off, it disappeared from all the radars and no one was able to track its location. The US Coast Guard initiated a massive search and rescue mission, but the plane was never found. There wasn't even a trace on the plane or even a small piece of a wreckage. Its last known location was 4 miles west of West Caicos Island. But sadly, we will never know what happened to those 12 people on board, and their disappearance will remain a mystery forever. Maybe aliens had something to do with it. Maybe everyone in the Bermuda Triangle, all the people were taken into Area 51. So maybe on September 20th, we might find all these missing people. Moving on to number 3, C-54 Skymaster. The C-54 took off from Bermuda on July 3rd, 1947, and it was intercepted by a massive thunderstorm. A lot of investigators and researchers blame the thunderstorm for the plane's disappearances, but there is a lot more to the story. The real question is, why did this plane head straight for the eye of the storm, when it could have easily avoided it? The C-54 was a military aircraft that was capable of carrying 85 passengers. On the day of the flight, there were 5 crew members and a very skilled pilot. So after it took off from Bermuda, the plane started to go off course, but the pilot and the navigator on board weren't aware of this. As a result, it was headed straight for the storm. It headed in this direction for a long time, until the ground radio operator heard a chilling SOS distress call, but for some reason they ignored it. Some debris was found, but they quickly blamed the storm for crashing the plane. I don't know, it kind of sounds a little bit fishy to me. I mean, what's really going on here? Is there a massive cover-up? But you know, at the end of the day, we're probably never gonna find out. Is the government behind the Bermuda Triangle? There's a lot of theories behind it all. Flight 201 makes an appearance, or a disappearance, in at number 2. The aircraft left Fort Lauderdale on March 31st, 1984, and it was supposed to land on Bimini Island in the Bahamas, but it never made it. Despite the heavily experienced crew and pilot, something terrible went wrong. Halfway into the flight, the plane slowed down significantly, but no radio signals were sent and no distress calls were ever made. Suddenly the plane crashed into the water and it completely vanished off the radar. This seems to be the trend with all of them, but interestingly enough, a woman on Bimini Island reported seeing a plane crash into the water about a mile from the shore, but no wreckage was ever found. How is that even possible? There wasn't even the smallest trace of the plane left behind. I mean, is this real life right now? That just gives me the creeps. And finally, topping our list at number 1, we have the disappearance of Flight 19. On December 5th of 1945, 5 US Navy bombers took off from Fort Lauderdale for a routine training exercise, but they had no idea that that would be their last training exercise ever. They didn't make it back alive. The first leg of the exercise went according to plan, but shortly afterwards, something strange started to happen. The only experienced pilot on the plane, he radioed back to the base saying that both of his compasses aren't working, and he was trying to find Fort Lauderdale. He was sure that he was in the Florida Keys, but he didn't know how far down he was. I mean, take a look at this picture. The yellow part is the flight path that they should have taken, the purple path is where the pilot thought he was, and the red shows you where they actually flew. They are nowhere near each other. They believe that the pilot became extremely disoriented, and one of the trainees said, if we just fly west, we should get home. As it turns out, he was right. But because the experienced pilot was stubborn, they became another victim of the infamous Bermuda Triangle. Oh, and the rescue plane that went to go find them, it also disappeared just 20 minutes after takeoff.
Alright, coming in at number 10, we have the Mystery Light. In 1492, Christopher Columbus was on board the Santa Maria with his crew on his first voyage to the New World. He sailed through the area we now know as the Bermuda Triangle and reported seeing fire on the horizon, despite there being no discernible land. He wrote in his diary describing the flame as a small wax candle that rose and lifted up. On investigation, they couldn't get to the bottom of what it was. In modern times, people attribute the light to Columbus witnessing a meteor crash. Others, not so convinced. Coming in at number 9, Bruce Gernon and the Time Warp. A lot of the Bermuda Triangle encounters happened a long time ago, or there simply aren't any key eyewitnesses to discuss their experiences. Bruce Gernon is very much alive and kicking, and he had a very strange experience flying over the Bermuda Triangle on his way to Palm Beach in the 1970s. At the time, he was an experienced personal pilot and a grown-up flying with his dad. Shortly after taking off from Andros in the Bahamas, Gernon came across a storm, so he tried to fly around it. He found a strange tunnel in the clouds and decided he's gonna fly through it. Here's what he had to say about it.
The airplane penetrated into the tunnel. These strange lines formed.
Right. Okay, so that's what he had to say. In the tunnel, he said he had a feeling as if he was slipping through time and space. He said that when he got out of the cloud tunnel after 20 seconds, the Miami air controllers had been worried as his plane had totally disappeared off their radars. He described an electromagnetic yellow-greyish fog surrounding the plane and messing with his instruments. When he emerged from the fog, he thought that he was going to be over Bimini, but air control told him that Actually, he was flying directly over Miami Beach. What should have taken him around 80 minutes of flight time had only taken 34 minutes. He was baffled. He seems to have traveled 100 miles in just 3 minutes. So this is roughly 1,918 miles per hour when his plane was only capable of traveling at 200 miles per hour. Weird. Famous pilot Charles Lindbergh also reported something very similar in the area. Weird. Coming in at number 8, we have the Ellen Austin encounter. In 1880, the Ellen Austin came across an unidentified schooner ship drifting in the Bermuda Triangle's Sargasso Sea. Now, it was sailing a very weird erratic path, and Captain Baker of the Ellen Austin decided to trail the ship for 2 days just to check it wasn't a trap. After 48 hours, the Ellen Austin came close to the boat and received no return signal. Captain Baker decided to send 4 of his men on board to investigate the ship. Weapons drawn, they got no response. On investigation, they saw no signs of life, but also no signs of struggle. The only thing that seemed awry was that the entire crew were missing, and curiously, as was the ship's logbook. Finding a perfect stash of mahogany on board, the captain formed a prize crew of his most trusted men and ordered that they sailed the ship to New York. Days later, the Ellen Austin came across the very same vessel again. Now, they sent out signals, and once again it was met with no response. Again, the ship seemed to be drifting aimlessly. Captain Baker sent more men over, who found their prize crew totally absent, again without signs of a fray, and again the logbook was missing. Captain Baker's crew were freaked out, but he demanded that a small crew of new men once again try and steer the boat and its bounty to New York. It took hours of convincing, as many thought that the ship was cursed. However, he did manage to assemble a crew. Now, that was the last anyone ever saw of the schooner or the crew ever again. They simply disappeared. Coming into number 7, we have the missing USS Cyclops. After departing Barbados on the 4th of March 1918, the USS Cyclops went missing without a trace, with a crew of 309 people. The ship was carrying a whole load of manganese ore and was never seen again, leaving absolutely no trace. Now, by this point, it's a very familiar story. The incident was the single greatest loss of life in the history of the US Navy, whilst not actively engaged in combat. Was the ship too heavy, or did the Bermuda Triangle pull it down to its murky depths? Coming into number 6, we have Carol A. Deering. Good old Carol was the name of a 5-masted schooner. She'd been afloat for 3 years when she was found run aground and abandoned on the 31st of January 1921, which is exactly 98 years ago on the day that I scripted this video, which is really spooky. The wreck was found in Cape Hatteras in North Carolina, but she was supposed to be sailing from Puerto Rico to Rio, right in the heart of the Bermuda Triangle. She was gonna cut straight through it. Now, no trace of the crew were ever found. Some people speculated mutiny, others say the ship may have been attacked by pirates, citing the Prohibition era of the incident. Sadly, we will never know. Coming into number 5, we have the 2017 Turkish airline incident. So this is actually very recent. In February 2017, Turkish Airlines flight TK183 encountered some strange problems as it flew over the Bermuda Triangle. It seems that the Airbus A330-200 was forced to change its direction from Havana, Cuba to Washington Duluth Airport. The pilot and crew reported mechanical and electrical problems. Now, electrical problems, after what we've already heard, to me, that's just pretty interesting. Coming into number 4, this is a little bit more tin hat. We have the Lost City of Atlantis. The legend of the Lost City of Atlantis claims that the city radiated a mysterious energy that caused navigational instruments to break down, which kind of sounds like what we know from the area. Is the Lost City of Atlantis under the Bermuda Triangle? The legend of Atlantis also talks about interesting rock formations on the ocean bed. Now, these are rather like some of those located on the ocean bed in the Bahamas. These are called Bimini Road. Some mystics believe that Atlantis lies at the very, very bottom of the murky depths, and the energy of the lost souls, the ghosts of the drowned citizens, are what are causing the disappearances and luring people to their watery deaths, leaving absolutely no trace to the outside world. Honestly, I'm not sold on this one. Coming into number 3, we have the alien wreckage. Discovery Channel host Daryl Miklos was filming a show whilst diving in the Caribbean using maps made by former NASA astronaut Gordon Cooper. Now, he was in search of old shipwrecks and magnetic anomalies. He was investigating what he thought might be an ancient shipwreck, but it turns out it was something else entirely. Miklos described it as a formation unlike anything he had ever seen, being far too big for a shipwreck, he also said. Now he said something which I thought was really interesting. He said it was something that was completely different from anything that I've ever seen made by nature. This led him to speculate that actually it might be something entirely unearthly. Miklos also found another strange object and formation all around the big puzzling object, all of which are covered in thick coral, thought to date back hundreds upon hundreds of years. When Miklos studied Cooper's work, he found that the astronaut believed in aliens. Now this led to the Discovery Channel host speculating that the mysterious wreckage could be a crashed alien spaceship. Because, you know, what else? Coming into number 2, we have the UFOs over the triangle. Can we explain the Bermuda Triangle with aliens? Maybe. It seems that there was a terrifying alien encounter on board the USS John F. Kennedy in the 1970s, but crew on board the ship were told by the captain to keep stum. It seems that the ship was set to return to Virginia after 2 weeks in the Caribbean, and was in the middle of the ocean when the crew on deck looked up to see a large glowing sphere around 200 to 300 feet in diameter. One eyewitness said it was yellow and orange in colour, and all of the radar screens on board the boat lit up. Naval officers tried to deploy 2 F-4 Phantoms to intercept the UFO, but they simply wouldn't start. Eventually the UFO moved on days later, and as the ship was making its approach back to the USA, the captain warned the crew against speaking of the incident. This isn't the only time it's happened either. It seems Google Maps shows a UFO just outside of the triangle. Finally, coming into number 1, we have the disappearance of Flight 19. Now this is the most famed legend surrounding the Bermuda Triangle and one of the hardest to explain. It all went down on December 5th, 1945, when 5 TBM Avenger bombers grouped as Flight 19 were flying over the Bermuda Triangle. The flight never returned to Fort Lauderdale as planned, and the worst was feared, with the general theory being that something had gone wrong and the planes had run out of fuel. As there were 14 men lost, the Navy sent out a rescue mission to search for survivors, or at least to confirm the wreck. 13 crew were set off on the Martin PBM Mariner flying boat, but that flight never made it back either. Neither wrecks have ever been found, nor have any traces of the missing people. Now the story made international news and helped perpetuate the legend of the Bermuda Triangle. Coming into number 10, we have air bombs. In 2016, a new theory surrounding the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle came to light. Hexagonal cloud formations were spotted over the Bermuda Triangle area, similarly to some noted over the North Sea in the UK, only much bigger. Super hexagons. Those studied off the coast of Britain had the ability to generate waves of over 45 feet and winds of 170 miles per hour. Dubbed air bombs, these in theory could be powerful enough to sink massive vessels, although whether or not they would be big enough to take down a plane is somewhat questionable. Meteorologist Dr. Randy Cavani called the hexagonal cloud formations bizarre. Others have put 2 and 2 together and got 763 and concluded that the hexagonal clouds are alien-made. Alien air bombs. Sure. Coming into number 9, we have the Asian Bermuda Triangle. Just when you thought the rest of the world was safe, it turns out there is a similar spot to the Bermuda Triangle in the Taiwan Strait. In June 2019, a fisherman was lost for 11 days adrift at sea as a fog descended upon his vessel. He ran out of phone battery and his fuel tank burned out, leaving him utterly stranded in a stretch of water that was the site of 85 disappearances in 2016. Luckily, 52-year-old Nian Shanghua survived by drinking his own urine and eating fish until he was finally able to flag down a passing cargo ship 2 weeks after he first got lost. Not only was the area making headlines in 2016, it had also been hailed a scary mystery in 2008 when multiple planes crashed nearby. Is the area a new Bermuda Triangle? Questions. Coming into number 8, we have the electromagnetic comet. Famously, Christopher Columbus claimed that his compass went crazy in the waters of the Bermuda Triangle between Florida and Puerto Rico. The 15th century explorer isn't the only person to complain or note weird seeming magnetic issues in the area. An electromagnetic fog has been the topic of much debate after pilot Bruce Gernon claimed that there were problems with his plane equipment when he flew over the area. So, what's the explanation? It seems that some people think that the strong magnetic energy in the area comes from a comet that crashed crashed to Earth from out of space thousands of years ago. People believe that the alien rock contains a magnetic influence that even from the ocean bed has the ability to mess with boats and even aircraft. Of course, nobody has ever found any evidence of the comet or even an impact crater under the water in the area, so really this is just a story. Others claim the magnetic anomalies come from the triangle being in the meeting place of the magnetic north and the magnetic south. It's pole flips and stuff. I think I just like doing this sometimes in videos too. I need to do more of this. Scripted hands. Although, these are unscripted. Put them away. Okay. Coming into number 7, we have the disappearance of Jennifer Blumen. On May the 15th, 2017, a private plane carrying CEO of the Skylight Group, 40-year-old Jennifer Blumen, and her 2 young sons, Venus and Theodore, disappeared along with her boyfriend, pilot Nathan Ulrich. Air traffic control lost contact with the Mitsubishi MU-2B aircraft while it was heading from Florida from Puerto Rico. Sounds familiar? That's the area of the Bermuda Triangle. The plane was flying at 24,000 feet when it disappeared over the Bermuda Triangle for reasons unknown. Classic. The aircraft vanished from radio and radar control and never made a distress signal. We just don't know what happened. The bodies of the passengers have never been found, but debris believed to be part of the plane was located by the US Coast Guard 15 miles east of Eutheria in the Bahamas. Another victim of the curse of the triangle? I think so. Hauntingly, Jennifer's last tweet was bye-bye. Coming into number 6, we have the pyramids. The story goes that an oceanographer by the name of Dr. Meyer Verlag found underwater pyramids beneath the Bermuda Triangle. The alleged researcher said that the pyramid is made of a smooth crystal-like substance 3 times the size of the pyramids of Cheops. The website before its news claimed to break the story, saying that Dr. Meyer Verlag had hosted a press conference in the Bahamas presenting a report that claimed to note the exact coordinates of the pyramid, and also noted that the tech used is unknown to modern science. So just curious, has anyone spotted an issue here, other than Crystal Pyramid in the sea? Anyone? What was that website again, before it was news? Fake news, you win again. There is no Dr. Verlag. Nonetheless, the pyramid story remains an enduring myth, with some claiming to have even seen the structures underwater for themselves. Coming into number 5, we have the Lost Souls. Author Dr. Kenneth McAul claimed to have heard a haunting sound while sailing the Bermuda waters. He detailed it in his book Healing the Haunted and suggested that the strange occurrences in the area could be caused by the lost souls of dead African slaves thrown overboard and killed on their journey to the New World. The Bermuda Triangle was used as part of the slave route from Africa, and many Africans did die on the journey. Does this mean that the waters are now cursed? Does this also explain the wailing heard by Dr. McCall? Are they the cries of lost souls? Coming into number 4, we have the pirates. Arr. One explanation for the mysterious disappearances surrounding the Bermuda Triangle is pirates, and I guess it makes sense. If it's good enough for the Pirates of the Caribbean, then it's good enough for me, although I will say the same sentiment does not apply when it comes to Johnny Depp. So, could the mysterious disappearances have had something to do with pirates? Like, honestly, maybe. It would make a lot of sense, right? More so than a magnetic comet from outer space. A 400-year-old pirate ship was found in Bermuda, and historical documentation places pirates in the waters in the mid-1700s too. Could pirates be capturing people on ships, robbing them and leaving the vessels ransacked? Or just stealing people away? In late July 2015, so very recently, 2 14-year-old boys, Austin Stephanopoulos and Perry Cohen, went on a fishing trip on their 19-foot boat. It took the US Coast Guard a year and 15,000 miles of searching to find the boys' abandoned boat off the coast of Bermuda, but the 2 boys were never seen again. A lot of people think it has something to do with pirates. From pirates to monsters, coming into number 3, we have the Bermuda Beast. It wouldn't be an area of mystery if there wasn't a few monster stories attached to it, right? A number of people believe that the whole Bermuda Triangle issue could be the fault of a giant and hungry sea monster, rather like the Kraken. YouTube channel Unexplained Mysteries delved deeper into the alleged sea monster, the Bermuda Beast, that is said to be able to gobble up ships and planes. I'm kind of imagining it goes something like this. Right, see? I mean, I knew it was the Megalodon all along. I don't know, man, though. To be fair, we're joking and everything, but at the same time, the sea is a deep and curious place, so who knows what's going on. I don't know about monsters or big fish taking down planes, but perhaps boats were gobbled up by something lurking under the waters. It's fun to say things like that, doesn't it? But of course, I don't necessarily believe that there's a big kraken or beast under the water there. I don't know, though. Maybe there is. Coming in at number 2, we have the Sargasso seaweed. In the heart of the Bermuda Triangle is the mysterious Sargasso Sea. The sea has no shores and is bordered by other oceans. Now, the sea is very strange for a number of reasons. It's oddly warm and it's covered in a very dense seaweed. Oddly, the sea has been the location where a large number of boats have disappeared and re-emerged crewless some days later. This is what happened to the vessel Rosalie in 1840, as reported in the Times newspaper. The ship sailed through the sea and was lost in August. Now, by November, she'd been found adrift with all of her cargo aboard and no visible signs of damage. The only thing was, though, she was covered in seaweed and the entirety of her crew had disappeared, never to be seen again. Finally, coming into number 1, we have, is the Bermuda Triangle a glitch in the Matrix? Maybe. At the beginning of 2019, Redditor Paul5424 wrote in Reddit Shower Thoughts, "If we all live in a simulation, the Bermuda Triangle is probably some kind of glitch spot." Now, this comment received over 4,000 upvotes, and it's funny, sure, but like, actually, maybe accurate. Elon Musk thinks that we're living in a computer simulation. In fact, I do believe that he said there is only a 1 in billions chance that we're not living in a simulation, so I think he's pretty convinced. If we are living in a simulation like the Matrix, then surely there'd be glitches for sure. Maybe the reason we can't explain the Bermuda Triangle is because there is no explanation that makes sense to us. Planes and boats have simply been deleted.